Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Rudman, Artistic Director of the Musical Theater Project. As usual, on the screen, you can see your instructions for how to participate in our little party tonight. I know this is technically a Q&A, but we think of it as a party because we're celebrating such a great film. This is Vincent Minnelli's An American in Paris from 1951, starring Gene Kelly and Leslie Caron. I'm going to bring on my sidekick in just a minute, but let's do a little exercise so you will know how to participate with a question or a comment. You can rehearse right now by using the raise your hand feature on Zoom. Try it right now. Try it. If you're unable, no worries about that because our tech whiz, Debbie Schinker, has ways. And she will try to help you via chat. This is the fourth Let's Go to the Movies at Home evening we've done. So far, we've shown Royal Wedding, Easter Parade, 42nd Street. You seem to be having a good time, but we want to get your suggestions for other classic movie musicals that you would like to see. So please fill out the survey. There's a link in the chat area. That's enough housekeeping. My co-host is a longtime friend and colleague. He's a communications professor at John Carroll University, and it's time to bring him on. He is Bob Knoll.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be back.
I'm glad you're back, Bob.
Yeah.
And you made your debut with this series 2 weeks ago, and I'm so happy to tell you that we had a hit. Heidi Lang and Joanna May Cullinan from our staff tell me that not only did we have people from the greater Cleveland area on that Q&A, we also had people from New York, Chicago, New Jersey, Indianapolis, and Austin, Texas. What do you think about that?
That's pretty exciting. It shows you how musical theater, people love it still. There's still people out there, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're on a roll, and I'd like you to do the honors and get the questions and comments going. And by the way, I should just say, yeah, we want questions. We also want comments. And Bob and I love it when you guys disagree with one or both of us. So take it away, Bob.
Okay, what we'd like to hear is questions for us. And we can start by you marking the applause sign, and then we can start calling on you. So is there an opening question here? Anybody? Okay, I don't see anybody now.
Yeah, someone just turned up on screen.
Okay.
Actually, Bob, before you ask Judy and Bruce,
yes,
Stephen in the chat had the first question. Stephen Bell has a question for you.
Okay, got it. Okay. Julie and Bruce, question or comment?
Hello.
Yeah, question, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Bob, and everybody else who's watching. And you can see Judy.
Yes. Yeah.
I felt this movie should be retitled to "I'm Gene Kelly and I Want to Show You."
I think there's a lot more in this movie than Gene Kelly, even though he dominates because he's a star. And I know he did the choreography, and of course he co-directed a lot of the scenes with Vincent Minnelli, and of course he's in almost every scene. Okay, so but he's a movie star, and he attracted an audience back then, and he's so talented. And this is also a movie, by the way, that won 6 Academy Awards. And I was looking back. Its competition for the Best Picture was Streetcar Named Desire with Marlon Brando, A Place in the Sun, Detective Story, and African Queen. And it was so highly regarded that it came in #1 and won the Oscar that year. So a lot of people love this movie. I think Bill and I do. And because there's so many things going for it. There's some weaknesses, too, that we can maybe talk about. Why don't you... What's wrong with a lot of Gene Kelly? There aren't many of those Gene Kellys out there. Bruce?
It appears that he wears tap shoes no matter where he goes, and he always taps on concrete. And when he was tapping on top of the piano, I really didn't like that because I don't like seeing pianos being put to a use like that.
Pretty much, they set this movie up as surreal right away. You either go with it or you don't. And I think that's why people like the movie or you don't like the movie. If you have people sing and dance all over the place, you know.
I like seeing Oscar Levant play violin.
Yeah, that was a curiosity, wasn't it?
That's true. Okay, any other comment? Laurel, you have a comment? Laurel Kest, are you there? Laurel?
Okay, now.
Yep, I just unmuted you. You try again, Laurel.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a small niggling question. When we first see Milo's car, it is a nice bright green. The next shot, that car is turquoise. The third time we see the car, all in that same sequence, more or less, the car is turquoise and Does anybody have an explanation for this?
I think
Bob, I would definitely toss it to you because as a TV veteran, you're an expert on what they call in the field continuity.
Right. There's a continuity person on set and supposed to keep track of all those things.
Right.
And with a big movie like this, there's a staff of them. And somebody blew it. Somebody didn't keep track. Because
did anyone else notice it?
No.
No, which is maybe a good sign that it's a good movie if you don't notice some of those kind of details.
By the way, I did notice the Lascaux in the Lascaux etchings or drawings on the wall.
Yeah, good. Oh, I'm glad. That was fun to point out.
Stephen has a comment. Stephen
Bell?
Stephen Bell, yeah.
Unmute. Okay, there we go. I just wanted to know if that was Lois Lane that was talking to Gene Kelly on the street, looking at his paintings.
It looked like it.
It was the same actress, yeah.
Noelle Neal?
Yeah. She just did a bit part, yeah.
I also had a question. This is Leslie Caron's screen debut.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seemed to me that she may have had her teeth done or something for later movies.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the thing that's amazing about Leslie Caron's performance is that she couldn't speak English, she can't sing, and she never acted before. So she did quite a job because Gene Kelly had to coax her quite a bit, teach her how to speak. But what she did know how to do was dance, and that was the attraction to her. And she was also the fact that, remember, this is 1950, 51 when they're filming this. She went through the hell of what it was like, but with the German occupation in France. She grew up like Audrey Hepburn did, in poverty, and luckily she can get a meal. And she was still a bit malnutrition problems she was suffering for, even in this movie, which is why she only worked every other day because she was so weak. I mean, it's quite a story that she got through all this. She eventually learned English and became a really good actress. She gained weight. I think she had her teeth fixed too. Pretty sure.
And I must say, I think she's a terrific actress in this movie. I think it's a beautiful performance.
I didn't understand Stephen's questions. What did he mean about that being Lois Lane?
The same actress that played Lois Lane in the old TV series Superman.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Good one, Bob.
Yeah. Bridget Emerson, is she around, please? You got a question?
She's always around.
Yeah. Okay. Bridget?
I do. I'm unmuting myself. Sorry. Thank you. So I wanted to make a couple observations and point out a couple little nuggets. First of all, I thought the movie was fantastic. I loved it. And I'm a little picky. So I really enjoyed it this time. I thought that the dancing was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And I wanted to make an observation. You pointed out that like the 20-minute ballet was something people were like, oh, I don't know if that's going to fly. I actually thought it worked really well. And something that I noticed while I was watching it is with Gene's athleticism and the fact that tap is a very American art form, and then the fact that she was a ballerina and that's a very European art form, I thought that was some kind of statement about America and Europe, or America and France. So I did notice that, especially during the ballet. I also wanted to point out in the scene where Gene is tapping on the piano, he actually makes a mistake. I'm not sure if other people noticed it. When he's laying over the piano and he drags his hand in one direction he plays a gesture on the piano with one hand. He's playing it the opposite of how it sounds on the recording. So when his hand should be hitting a low note, it's actually hitting a high note. So I don't know if you watch that, you'll notice that the sound and his action don't match. So
wow. How many viewings did it take you to catch that? Did you catch that on one viewing?
I did. I caught it. I was like, hey, that's backwards, because it really drives me crazy when I watch musicians who are not musicians playing musical instruments, and it's clearly wrong. So that's something I noticed.
Because remember in musicals, most of the sound is recorded later or before. Right. So sometimes they don't always match.
Right.
Bruce has another comment. Bruce?
27.
Oh, I had something else too.
Oh, okay, sure.
I just wanted to say that about the car. I thought the car was a different style every time it showed up, and she may have just hired a car every time she needed one.
Could be. She had enough money.
Yeah. Bridget, you had another question? Bridget?
Well, another thing that I noticed, so the costume that Gene was wearing in the party scene was sort of reminiscent of Harlequin, and that sort of brought to mind Pierrot for me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, maybe that's a little bit of a reference there as well, possibly to the whole America and Europe thing. Pierrot is the alter ego of the artist. I've seen it written that. And I'm wondering if that was sort of a reference for Gene's character. This is, his alter ego. Pierrot pursues Columbine and always loses her to Harlequin. And I thought it was interesting that in the film, instead, he actually finally wins. And so I wonder if that costume was some sort of, reference to that.
Knowing Vincent Minnelli, you must be absolutely right. Only Vincent Minnelli, of all the directors at MGM, would have added that little tiny touch that nobody but you would get.
I'm sure other people did.
Sue Mayer, you have a question? Sue? You had your hand up.
Yeah, I do have a question. All right, so this movie, Gene Kelly introduced Leslie Caron, which is great. The next year, he introduced Debbie Reynolds in Singing in the Rain. Did he ever have any comments about bringing these two brand new actresses into the fold? And they both ended up with great successful careers as a result.
Not that I know of, but I think it's an astute observation, and it applies not only to Gene Kelly, but to Fred Astaire. In this series, we've talked about how Fred Astaire seemed to be working with very young female performers time after time, and in a sense, they became his proteges. And I think that Gene Kelly was very proud of the work that Leslie Caron did in this movie. And I could even state it more strongly than you did. Gene Kelly discovered Leslie Caron as a ballet dancer in Roland Petit's company in Paris. Really big deal.
And he really wanted a real French girl in this movie, because he felt that would add a lot of authenticity, because this movie was filmed in Hollywood on the MGM lots, except for some opening shots of Paris. Everything else was filmed on location. And I think that added a lot to the film, the Paris angle, to have a real French lady. And plus that she went through what her character would have gone through, 5 years after, the Germans were out. Wayne, you have a question?
And we should say, this is Wayne from Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Hi. Y'all hear me, see me, all that?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. So I just had a couple of comments about the film. I mean, it's a film I feel like I've probably seen several times in my life, and I do really like it a lot, but I thought it was sort of interesting watching it right after watching 42nd Street, because I was feeling that there was one thing that they sort of had in common for me, which was just like how in 42nd Street, that stage show sort of elevated the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it was right at the end of the film. I felt like this ballet sequence at the end of this film elevated this movie. And I can't really even imagine this movie without it.
Yeah.
And
That's
then,
good storytelling, because you always want to top yourself at the end if you can.
Yeah.
And it builds to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also, there was something about the movie, the way it was set up. I think the very first scene we see Gene Kelly getting out of bed, and it's almost like he's dancing already. Like when he's getting out of bed, the movements that he is making is extremely, it feels very choreographed.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really wonderful way to set up for the viewer that you're about to see a movie about dancing.
Exactly. That's a really good point, because the audience will now expect everybody else is going to dance throughout the movie, and then we just buy it. You either buy it or you don't.
Yeah.
And it sets it up right away. It's just like I always look at this when you see a musical, when you see a movie and they're singing right away, you know, they're going to be singing throughout this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you do a play when they don't sing at all of a sudden they start singing, you think they're crazy. You know? And the same way with dancing, it's set up right away. And again, you can tell it's his movie. Stephen Bell, you've got a comment?
My comment is about Oscar Levant. First of all, most of his playing sequences just kept reminding me of the various Jose Iturbi sequences in various other movies, like Ankles Away or, Two, Three Men to Sail or whatever, Something in the Wind, all those sort of things. But in watching really closely, because I'm also a pianist, it appeared that his parts were not pre-recorded, that a lot of the piano playing was actually done live. Is that true, or do you know?
I don't know. Maybe you do, Bob, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, he may have demanded it that they be done live.
A piano, you can just put a microphone there. That's so much easier than having to have a soundtrack with voices and an orchestra. So that really can happen. That would make sense, actually, that they can do that. It's very simple to shoot. He just put a microphone by him playing live. That would make sense a lot of sense, because again, he wasn't really a trained actor either, so he was in his element when he was playing. Some other questions or comments?
He wasn't an actor, but he was a wit, for sure. And we should say that, in addition to the MGM musicals that he made, he wrote several fantastically witty books that you can still find. So go to Amazon and look for them. Really good stuff.
Yeah, he's also from Pittsburgh too, by the way. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of a small world. Okay, Bruce, you've got a comment, suggestion, anything?
Got two things. Actually, Judy is with one of them, but in terms of recording the piano, he was such a good piano player that he was able to copy his hand movements when he originally recorded it. If they had been recording it live, there would have been a very different ambience to the sound. So to me, it was all pre-recorded. He just knows what he was doing, so he could copy himself. Judy was also talking about the 6 different artists that were shown in the ballet. Toulouse-Lautrec, and who was the rest? Others? Renoir. Pardon? Van Gogh. How each of those different scenes represented a different style in visual art.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, I mentioned in the intro, it was Irene Sharaff's idea to do that. She was the costume designer for the picture. But it really also related to characters so strongly, because here was the Gene Kelly character, an American in Paris, who, as an artist, was soaking up the full tradition of the French Impressionists while he was there. It's really, it's really magnificent.
Some other questions, comments by anybody? One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, it won 6 Academy Awards, and I was just going through the list of what it won for. Best Picture we already talked about, but it won Best Original Screenplay. And you have to look at this and you think, is that really a great screenplay? Well, the bottom line, what Alan J. Lerner, his assignment was, and Bill mentioned it in the earlier talk, he was basically told, here are the Gershwin songs you have to use, and there's an American and he's in Paris. Go write a script and have it all tied together, and that's what he did. So I guess he got an Academy Award because he was able to put it all together. Alan J. Lerner, if you look at his books, he's not really a comic writer at all, And I know he did My Fair Lady, but most of the other book musicals are not really a lot of laughs. So this is so different than when you did Singing in the Rain, where you have Condon and Green writing the basic same idea to take these songs and put a musical together. And even with My Fair Lady, there's no doubt about it that Moss Hart, the director, really reworked that with him quite a bit. And of course, he had George Bernard Shaw, so he had a few advantages, okay? But then you look at the best music score, it shows you those great artists, and Bill could talk about them, the great artists that were there in the musical department at MGM. Bill, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, but there was something else that I wanted to say about Alan J. Lerner, because I'm such a big fan of Alan J. Lerner. And those of you who have been seeing the films in this series, just a month ago or whatever, we all saw Royal Wedding. And I remember one of you in our Q&A said, "What a terrible screenplay that is." And Alan J. Lerner himself didn't like it. It was his first screenplay for Hollywood, coming from Broadway to go to MGM. But just think, within 1 year of writing Royal Wedding, he wrote the Oscar-winning screenplay for American in Paris. And Vincent Minnelli loved this screenplay. He thought it was so sweet, so charming, and I have to agree with that.
Yeah, okay. And then we also, the music scores, Bill, they had the best people in the business.
They did.
Did Gershwin's score, and that must have been quite a responsibility.
That's right. And we pointed out in the intro, Johnny Green was head of the music department, so he supervised it. But whose name am I forgetting? Not Conrad Salinger, the other one.
Saul Chaplin?
Saul Chaplin, thank you. Saul Chaplin was the one who really had to adapt the score. And as I pointed out, to the end of his life, Saul Chaplin felt guilty because he felt that he may have somehow dishonored what Gershwin had written in 1928. But Ira Gershwin himself loved the adaptation, loved the way the ballet worked. So that was enough of an endorsement.
And speaking of loving, it also won Best Cinematography. There's a guy, the cinematographer was John Alden. He is legendary in film noir cinematography. But this was the first time he actually got a chance to work with Technicolor, which was the state-of-the-art technology and prints at the time. And he had a ball doing this. And the way his lighting was incredible. He was able to do mood lighting. He was able to do lighting that really everything popped out on the screen. He was able to do that. And he used a lot of techniques that have never been used before when it comes to cinema lighting. And he created the mood of the entire movie, and he created the mood of Paris when you look at it closely. And that's the cinematographer. And Minnelli must have had a lot of faith in him to have this guy that's never done a color movie to do a color movie like this.
Yeah.
And then this movie, of course, also won for art direction and set design. And it's, kind of incredible. Just that ending alone, the last 17 minutes of the ballet, 44 sets were used in those backdrops, 44 of them. So for 6 weeks, that's all that 30 painters did was paint those sets. And they were able to create this. And those flats, those backgrounds were something like 300 feet wide and 40 feet high, that these guys in 6 weeks were able to do that, and how beautiful they look, and how well that Minnelli and our friend Gene Kelly was able to put that together for those ballets. It's really kind of quite an achievement. And of course, the final Oscar went to Gene Kelly for what he did with this movie and choreography. He really worked very hard on this to create. He used, just like we talked about Bugsley Berkeley last week or 2 weeks ago, how he used the camera. Well, now the cameras were even better, and they were moving around, and he really knew how to shoot these dancers.
For costumes?
It didn't win for costumes, which I thought was really surprising. I thought those were incredible, just awesome, how they put those together. But it didn't win for that, which is really strange. I have no idea why. one of the things I guess I'd say about this show, this American in Paris, is how La La Land took so much out of it. How many people have seen La La Land? A lot of you? Okay. It just, there's so much, and the screenwriter and director, he said he gave a lot of credit to American in Paris. He said that up front.
So we call that an homage.
Homage, or he called it a ripoff. I mean, grab it, just take it and use it. Yes, and Roberta's got a question or comment. Roberta, you have your mic off.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. When you did your introduction thing and I watched it, you said there were 3 songs we were supposed to watch for, and you only said 2 of them. You said, I've Got Rhythm, which I thought was fabulous with the kids. And you said, Our Love Is Here to Stay, which I think is like the most romantic song there is on the stand there. The 2 of them, that's just fabulous.
It is, and it's done so simply, you know.
Oh, it is, but you think you're right there at the river in France. It's like so good. Was the 3rd one wonderful, or
no? Actually, I think you may have misunderstood me. What I was saying was that most of us know all the songs in the movie except 3. There are 3 sort of oddities that most people would not have known, and I'm drawing a blank right now.
Well, the one on the piano is one that is not as
familiar. Yeah, the one on what they do at the piano. Yeah,
right.
2 others. Yeah.
Well, I love the songs, and I think Gene Kelly's fabulous. I can watch him any day.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments? We just have a few more minutes left, I believe.
Oh, we're going to go 45, so we have more time.
Great. Okay, we have other comments.
I see that Dettelbach has a question, and also Bonnie Cole.
Okay.
Oh, Bonnie and Mike Cole. I see.
Okay, Bonnie, what is the question?
I have a question. Oh, okay. We both have a question.
Okay, good.
My question first, going back to the cinematography, is in that long ballet dance sequence at the end, they must go through 5, 6 or more costume changes. Was that groundbreaking at the time? Because it seems seamless, but yet they went through many costume changes.
It was groundbreaking because the biggest thing that made it groundbreaking is that it's an 18-minute ballet. You know, I mean, that was a huge thing in those days, and I'm not sure that, I don't know, maybe you guys can tell us if there's another American movie musical that had the guts to do that. And as we've already said, to do that as the finale, that was a big deal. But just 18 minutes of real ballet. And, you know, Gene Kelly was such a teacher. He wanted to teach Americans this art form. He wanted to expose millions of Americans to an art form that in many cases they didn't know. Lots of Americans had never seen a ballet before, but this was an honest to goodness ballet. It's like what he did was a public service.
Yeah. Wayne, you have a comment, suggestion? Comment?
I had.
Okay.
You're part 2, Bonnie.
Sorry.
Yeah, part 2. Going back to the last part, the ballet scene, I was wondering, it was 18 minutes, but how long did it take to shoot that? I mean, obviously they started and stopped for costume changes, but when they rehearsed it and they were actually filming it, was it over several days that they did that? Does anybody know? And I wonder what the rehearsal time, and the other question about that ballet scene is, were the dancers the same dancers? Was that the company of dancers that were in the various scenes?
I would be, based on what I know of Arthur Freed's unit at MGM, it would have been the same dancers. The first part of your question, they rehearsed that 18-minute ballet for 1 month, and it took them 2 weeks to film it.
Oh, wow.
And because that's the scene alone, that 17 or 18 minutes, cost $450,000 back then.
Right, that's what Bill said. You can see why.
Yeah, the entire budget of the movie is $2.7 million. So think about that.
I loved it.
It was great.
Something, and exactly what Bill was talking about, how Gene Kelly really loved American dance and wanted to incorporate some of the modern moves and all that. It could be because that he's also a teacher. He literally was a teacher. Once he graduated from first what he was when he was 15 years old, he was a semi-pro hockey player. Okay, because his father was a Canadian who loved hockey, and he became a real pro. He could have been a pro that. And to this day, not to this day, when he was alive, he used to say that part of the reason he dances to the ground so much is what he learned from hockey, being a hockey star. And then what he did was then he graduated from college, from Pitt, and then for 6 years he worked for his mother's dancing studio where he was a dancing teacher. It was only after that he decided to try New York. And then,
and Bob, it's kind of the sidebar to what you just said is that another thing that was very important to Gene Kelly was he wanted to prove to Americans that dance was not a quote unquote feminine art. He wanted to present it as masculine, quote unquote, and he sure did in every movie that he made.
He believed in as an athlete.
Yeah, he was an athlete. That's absolutely right. Yeah, he really changed the perception of Americans about ballet and about dance in general. It wasn't just something girls did,
And he was a very masculine actor too. Everything was always that way. Women really loved him, and men accepted him too because I think of his athletic prowess. I think they really respected that too. He was just a different kind of guy. Sue's got a comment.
Hey, Bob,
Sue?
before you call, Cynthia Dettelbach has been waiting patiently.
Okay.
There you go, Cynthia.
Okay, go on, Cynthia.
I think one of the most brilliant scenes in the movie was the opening scene in this tiny apartment that had the bed pop up and the table come in. Maybe it was 45 seconds, but it was just a perfect gem. And then interesting, if you want to talk about bookends, the simplicity of that apartment with the lavishness of the 18-minute ballet and all.
Yeah.
Fascinating journey.
And the way, since you're talking about the beginning of the film, going back to praising Alan J. Lerner, I love the way the opening couple of minutes are narrated, in a sense. You hear Gene Kelly's voiceover in the first person describing this life that he's in the midst of in Paris. I think it's an impeccable opening for.
And also, what happens? Look at the set and art direction, like you're in Paris. You would never know that this is filmed in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So that was part of the perfection that they were really striving for. They set up right away. Okay, Dan, you got a comment?
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Daniel. Oh, you got Oscar Levant behind you tonight.
I mean, my favorite scene in the movie is when the three fellas are in the cafe and he's doing the shtick with all the smoking and the thing. I mean, I just thought that there was real dramatic tension in that scene. I appreciated it. What I learned about myself watching An American in Paris was that I appreciate ballet, I think, more than I enjoy it. And I thought some of the most interesting things in the movie, I mean, is when Gene Kelly wasn't necessarily with Leslie, but when he was dancing with the little kids, tap dancing with them. That was wonderful. There's a scene, you probably know, where he was dancing with that old lady. And I mean, just so many of those wonderful moments, because actually I thought her dancing was extraordinary in this, but I don't know that I could say I bought why he was like in love with her.
Really?
For me, I mean, I think he loved her, but I think he loved Gene Kelly more. And he's so, and look, if I had a third of the talent of a Gene Kelly or looked a third of as good as him, I would be 10 times more conceited than I think anyone ever, because he is just such an extraordinary performer. And maybe it's because I'm seeing like Judy Garland and Fred Astaire, and I'm like, well, we all fall in love with Judy Garland. I mean, just 2 seconds for her on screen, you're in love with her. But her, I didn't. I actually thought that Nina Foch, is that how you say her last name?
Foch.
Foch. I thought, man, I wouldn't have minded. This is sacrilege. I'm so sorry. Don't revoke my membership to your organization. I wouldn't have minded if those two would have got together. In some ways, they had more in common, than
they were age similar too, by the way, too.
Anyway. So look, I love this program, Bill. I think that I enjoyed in some ways your pre-show talk more than any any other before. Even though this isn't my favorite movie, I think it's my favorite pre-show talk that we've done. When they roll the credits at the end of this night, you know, I'd be holding up my phone, scanning it in to make a donation. I feel like this is therapy. It's worth at least a copay to me. To get off this
Dan, I have to ask you, because what you said is sacrilege. So I have to ask you, did you fall in love with Leslie Caron in Gigi?
I haven't seen Gigi. Which is another reason to take away my membership card from the organization, because I have seen 0 of these movies until you've shared them with me. So now I can't see anything without Bill giving a 20-minute talk on it. So I'm really...
call him up before you see a movie.
Oh, you have to see Gigi. Yeah.
Karen's got a comment. Karen?
Oh, yeah. You know, I was surprised how forthright the relationship between Jerry and Milo is. I mean, it was very sexy.
Yeah.
And my favorite line in the movie is when Adam says to Jerry, "When you get married, are you going to keep your maiden name?" I thought that, you know, the relationship between the two of them, Milo and Jerry, I mean, it was pretty clear what she was after.
Yep.
And no, they didn't hide it. So that surprised me for 1951.
Well, I think it's also a very interesting relationship between Leslie Caron's character and Georges Guthrie, who had really been her protector as an orphan during World War II, and clearly adored her. And she clearly felt such an immense debt to him. Both of those other relationships, I think, are very interesting. And another reason why Alan J. Lerner deserved his Oscar.
Okay. Mara has a comment. Mara?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why she had to be 19 years old in this. Like, what was the point of that? Why couldn't she have been 28?
Well, according to what I read, by the way, is that Sid Charisse was going to play this part originally when they had the movie started, but she got pregnant and realized she couldn't be in the movie. And then Gene Kelly remembered Leslie Caron, and then he went with a whole different approach. That's what I've read, at least.
My goodness, am I the only one who fell totally helplessly in love with Leslie Caron?
Yeah,
yes,
I didn't.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Sue, do you have a comment? Sue? Take your, okay.
Yeah.
Mute your phone. Okay. Sue?
Yeah, my comment was, I think that Daniel alluded to when Gene Kelly was dancing with the old lady. Maybe one of the 3 songs that wasn't as well known was A Waltz by Strauss.
Yep, that's
I
right.
certainly didn't know it, and I thought that was such a delightful number with the two, the heavyset woman and the older woman, who then turns out to be the flower shop lady, was just so charming.
Yeah.
And I've been humming it ever since I watched the movie. I cannot get that song out of my mind.
Good.
And it's so not like Gershwin.
Right.
So not like other Gershwin songs.
Yeah. It's a pastiche of sort of Viennese operetta style. Yeah.
Wayne's got a comment. Wayne?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to go back to, I think Bill said something about, like, I don't know if there'd ever been another ballet as long in a film as
there was
The Red Shoes.
The Red Shoes. I was going to bring up The Red Shoes.
Yeah.
But again, that's not an American film, and I think it's from, I'm not exactly sure what year that came out in.
Pretty close, within a couple of years of this one.
But in the 40s, I believe. And
late 40s.
And what I know about The Red Shoes was that it was a big success in America, and like as far as like that kind of art film kind of goes, but it wasn't a very popular film initially in England, where it came from. And it kind of made me wonder if the success of The Red Shoes in America kind of gave them the encouragement to go ahead and make this film in America.
Well, supposedly Gene Kelly showed this to MGM, The Red Shoes, to convince them that a ballet would work. and because of that, he got the money to do the ballet.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
So it really ties together.
Well, thank you.
Roberta's got a comment.
Isn't there a ballet in Oklahoma?
Yeah, but it doesn't go 18 minutes.
No, I know, but you were saying ballets, and I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I misspoke really. I mean, if it's not 18 minutes, it's pretty close.
Right.
So yeah, there were a couple other examples. Yep,
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Agnes DeMille did a nice one in Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. And she did a beautiful Dream Ballet in Carousel.
And yep, you're right. Yep.
Okay, Bruce, you got a comment? Bruce?
Judy Googled who did Gene Kelly teach and came up with this. In 1931, he was approached by the Beth Shalom Synagogue in Pittsburgh to teach dance and to stage their annual festivals. The venture proved a success, Kelly being retained for 7 years until his departure for New York.
How about that? And it was Gene Kelly who created the role of Pal Joey for Rodgers and Hart in 1940. We're running out of time pretty soon, but we have Herb Drower here from Chicago. Herb, we want to hear something from you all the way out there in Chicago.
Right. Can you
join
hear me?
us? There you are.
I wanted to ask the question. I like George Gutteri. Well, how do you pronounce his last name? Gutteri. He had a show on Broadway, didn't he? After the movie, didn't he perform on Broadway?
You're good. He had a show on Broadway just before this movie. It was called Arms and the Girl.
That's right.
With music by Morton Gould and lyrics by
wonderful.
Dorothy Fields. Yeah.
But that was not a success, was it?
It was not a success. No.
Okay, he was pretty
was a
good
big-
though. He did a good job in the
star.
movie.
And he was a big star in Paris.
Yes,
But
I know.
But Herb, how did you like that story about how Gene Kelly had to literally teach him how to walk up the stairs?
Yes, I love that. Yeah, one step at a time, and because he couldn't go from side to side. Was that the story?
Yeah, well, he could not walk across a stage. He was a singer,
Now, was he like Maurice Chevalier when he was doing his act in Paris?
No, because Georges Gutteri was a real singer. Chevalier was what the French call a diseur, who always half spoke, half sang his songs.
Okay.
That would be the difference, I would think.
Vincent Minnelli originally wanted Maurice Chevalier, by the way, but he wasn't available. So this was his second choice.
Really?
That's how I forgot that, Bob. Good point. We can take one more.
One more question. Anybody?
We have shy people. We see all these names on the list of people who are out there. I feel like I should just call on somebody, but I don't want to embarrass them. But maybe I should do that. I'm going to call on somebody who knows a lot about music, so he must have a music question that I can't answer. And that's Dean Slako. Dean, what do you have to say about seeing this? You probably have seen it more than once.
Dean?
Just a minute.
I got you unmuted, Dean.
Okay. So were those Gershwin's orchestrations?
No. And at MGM, they had a phalanx of arrangers and orchestrators. So no, there wasn't anything. Even the American in Paris ballet orchestral score was adapted, quote unquote, by Saul Chaplin. So no, you weren't hearing the Gershwin sound, quote unquote, anywhere in this movie. Thank you. We're getting towards the end here, so we're going to call it a night. But before we call it a night, 4 things. We can count them off. 1, a reminder to fill out that survey that we told you about at the very beginning. There's a link in the chat area. And if you fill that out, you can suggest future classic movie musicals that you want us to run in this series. 2, if you enjoyed this session and you are not on our mailing list, for heaven's sake, forward your contact info through a private chat to us right now, and you'll start getting all our emails. And you can also sign up through our website, or you can call us at the number you see on your screen, 860-1518, extension 702. 3, as usual, we'd like to ask you to please consider making a donation to the Musical Theater Project today at any level that is meaningful to you. Right now, of course, that's especially important. And 4, we always close with a lyric. And it seemed to me that tonight it would have to be a lyric by Ira Gershwin. And I thought it might be kind of cool to use a lyric from a Gershwin song that was dropped from An American in Paris. And it'll surprise you to know that this song was dropped, but as Saul Chaplin said when he was working on this movie, you know, they had an embarrassment of riches to choose from. And Saul says if he had had his way, you know, there would have been 400 songs in the movie. But here's one that got cut, and it was to be a song for Gene Kelly to sing. And I think you'll see why, very much in the sort of style that he pulled off so beautifully. And this was written in 1928 for Treasure Girl. I'm going to read it from my 400-page book of Ira Gershwin's complete lyrics. It goes like this. I've got a crush on you, sweetie pie. All the day and nighttime, hear me sigh. I never had the least notion that I could fall with so much emotion. Could you coo? Could you care for a cunning cottage we could share? The world will pardon my mush, 'cause I got a crush, my baby, on you. And then she sings. I've got a crush on you, sweetie pie, all the day and nighttime, hear me sigh. This isn't just a flirtation. We're proving that there's predestination. I could coo, I could care for that cunning cottage we could share. Your mush I never shall shush, 'cause I've got a crush, my baby, on you. And if you say they don't write them like that anymore, you're absolutely right about that. Gene would have nailed it, but you can't have everything. So, Bob, tell us, because we have people who want to know, tell us what the coming attraction is.
Coming attraction is a biggie, and it's Frank Lesser's Guys and Dolls. This is the movie version with Marlon Brando, Frank Sinatra, Gene Simmons, and Vivian Blaine. And in this movie, we actually hear Brando actually sing. He doesn't do a bad job.
Not at all. So that's not to be missed. We'll be doing the Q&A 2 weeks from tonight, and the film will be sent to you before then. Thanks, Bob Knoll. I'm Bill Rudman, and from all of us at the Musical Theater Project, we wish you a very, very pleasurable weekend despite the rain. Good night.